Hello, welcome to my video. I've recently received some Ohuhu markers as a gift, so I'm going to swatch all the colours and see what I have. This pack did come with some swatch cards, but I wanted to use this Express It blending card. It's acid-free and recommended for using with alcohol markers, so I thought I'd do my swatches on there. Look how many pens I have. This took me such a long time to organise and do all the swatches. I started by putting similar colours in rubber bands to organise them. I did this based off the colour on the cap, which could have been a little bit of a mistake. You'll see when the swatch card is complete. I tried to do it based off the shade on the cap as well by lining them up in shade order, and it looks a little bit jumbled. Some colours I probably would have put in different places. I should have looked at the code, which all the yellows were Ys, the Gs were green, etc., which does make sense, but out of 320 colours it would have taken a really long time to organise them like that. But I think now that they're mostly organised, I will probably do another swatch card using Bristol paper, which is another card that's supposed to be good for alcohol markers. This is the first time that I'm using alcohol markers, so I learnt a couple of things along the way. Especially when it came to blending or layering colours, I came into a couple of problems. I did watch a couple of videos beforehand, kind of tutorials, but I wanted to get straight into the drawing because that's how I learn best, is by doing. One issue I came into, and I don't know if I'd call it an issue because I could use it to my advantage, but layering a lighter colour on top of a darker colour doesn't change the tone. It kind of bleaches that colour, which I found really interesting. There's no other medium that I've used that does this, so at first it was a little bit of a surprise. I guess I should have watched more videos before I did this. And the first drawing I did do, it looked pretty messed up because it was all accidental. But once I found this out about the markers, I could layer them up. For example, if I started with a base of dark blue and I wanted to add a little yellow to give it a green tinge, the yellow just bleached it. It did create a kind of glowing halo effect, if you know what I mean. After I've done the swatches, I'll insert an example to show you exactly what I mean by that. So if this is your first time using alcohol markers, it might be good to do a couple of tests where you layer colours, because they don't all do that. From my very, very minimal experience, if you want to layer colours for variation in tone and everything, it's best to start off with the lighter colours, which at first is quite unusual, especially as I'm used to painting, where you normally start with the darkest colours first. I do a little bit of drawing with pencils from time to time, but you can basically layer in any order you want, and if the pencils are good enough, they will layer. So I did do this graph myself. As you can see, I didn't even use a ruler, but I think it looks like a kind of cute tiled bathroom wall. If you want to make your own, just because the cards were kind of small, I probably will use the cards, but if you want to see how the markers will work on the actual paper you'll be working on, for easy maths, because I'm not the best at maths, so this did take me a little while to figure out. So I had to measure my Express It card, which was slightly larger than a regular A4 sheet of paper, but to fit 320 swatches, you'll need 16 by 20 squares, and each square was 1.3 centimeters cubed or squared. I'm not sure. I'm not very good at maths, but that was the formula I used to fill up this piece of paper. There's a tiny little gap at the top where I'll write Ohuhu marker swatches, just keeping organized. I will admit that I made a couple of mistakes doing these swatches, but luckily I was filming, so I was able to go back and figure out which pieces I messed up. So as you can see here, I just cut out another little square, stuck it down, did the outline, wrote the code, and filled it in as usual. and you really can't tell that anything went wrong. I did this twice, which is a little bit annoying, but if you're not filming, as long as you're doing this in an organized way, as you can see, I lined up the markers and did it that way. So if you get to your last marker and the number doesn't match up, you'll know you went wrong, basically. And you can either just do swatches on a separate piece of paper and figure out which color went wrong and replace it. If you do art and you're trying to do a specific color, you'll know how annoying it is when the color is not what you expect. I also noticed when I was doing the white marker for the darker colors, the V660, the purple, this was the only pen that did this, but the color bled through on the white acrylic marker. I put the acrylic marker on the darker shades where my black fine liner wasn't showing through. So if you have a white acrylic marker or white permanent marker, Tipp-Ex, whatever, I would recommend using it just to go over the darker shades. It already takes a long time to look for one specific color out of 360 pens, so this will just make it a little bit easier. So for all my swatches, I did one solid swipe over the whole square, and then on the left side I did 2 to 4 swipes. Depending on the color, it didn't really seem to depend on the shade, which I kind of thought it would. I would normally expect the lighter colors to need more coats for a darker shade, but this was a bit random throughout the pens, I noticed. It doesn't really matter too much, but obviously your pen will run out quicker if you're having to put more layers on. But with the amount of colors and shades here, if you are able to blend them, it would be better to do a darker shade and blend it with a lighter matching shade. Now that you can see there's a little bit of purple peeking through in the bottom left square. This was just a quick swatch I did before I started this. It didn't show through as I tried to make it a nice toasty dark brown over the top to cover it up. I do wish that I managed to line the colours up a little bit better. There's quite a few that stand out as they don't fit in the square, but I did base this off the colour from the cap. But as a whole, they all look really beautiful and vibrant. Here is the swatch of me doing a dark brown with a lighter colour. I put the colour on the screen. You can see how it bleaches. So this is the first drawing I did with alcohol markers. I used a photo from when I was in Cambodia as reference of two toads hanging out in some water hyacinth. I think it looks pretty cute. I did layer this by starting with the lighter colours and doing darker colours over the top because I didn't really want areas to bleach, but looking back I can see I probably could have done some of the texture using that technique. This second one I used Bristol paper, which is the other paper I mentioned that's good for alcohol markers. Again, a picture I took in Cambodia of some goldfish that were all in a pond. Love the colours, and I'll show a clip of the insanity that I saw at the pond. I did also use pencils for finer details as the marker fine tip is still quite chunky. And here are these crazy fish. I don't know if there was a bit of cruelty going on. They were also huge. The pond was big as well. This is a colouring page I found on Pinterest. Here is the artist, Sushiizai. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but I coloured it in. I did notice a little bit of either AI or some strange bits going on, like missing legs, weird joints and whatnot. So I did change quite a few things on this. I also want to show the colourless blender that came with this. If you make a mistake, wait till it dries and just draw over it. And when it looks grey here, but when it dries, it will just be the colour of the paper, which is pretty cool. I did learn that from the very few videos I watched about this, and here it is at the end. Pretty cute. This was really fun to colour in with the alcohol markers. You can get some quite cool effects if you just play around. For the ground, I used a greyish brown and a yellow over the top to do little sandy dots. Some areas do look a little bit dodgy, but we'll ignore that. Overall, very cute. This was a second one I did. It didn't have an artist name on, but I can link the coloring pages in the description. This was what I did with it. Very cute and colorful. I changed a few things on this again. And thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe.